So now I'm going to arraignment. This is when it gets tough here. They give me a lawyer, and I tell this lady, I said, look, you need to tell this judge that something is going on, and I was trying to explain the technology. She said, I can't tell him that. I can't tell him that. She didn't even know how to tell the man. She didn't know what, she didn't have a clue. I said, Your Honor, may I address the court? He said, yes. I said, Your Honor, there's something that's trying to get me to plead guilty, but it's not me. He said, huh? I said, there's something trying to get me to plead guilty to 4 bank robberies, but it's not me. He said, what? Shut it down. Renee, he shut it down. He shut the whole show down. And from that point on, I jumped in the driver's seat with my own lawyer. So they took me back to the jail, to the federal detention center. I wrote the judge, I said, there's been an immediate breakdown, complete breakdown with me and this lawyer. I don't want it, blah, 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 blah. Hey, it was in 3 days. They go aircon again. Federal marshals got me on the plane. Flew me out of LA all the way to Springfield, Missouri, to the federal prison, Springfield, Missouri, the Medical Center for Federal Prisoners. Okay, stuck me in the hole, yeah, put me in solitary confinement, and I'm sitting in this place saying, whoa, what the hell? So, the next day, I said, I asked her, the pencils was this long. I said, I need some pencils in paper. They came by anything, need toilet paper. I said, I need some pencils and paper. I collected the paper and the pencils, the little pencils, and I wrote a torture manual this thick on the program. A torture manual. Next day, they bust a trap. The guy say, hey, Sample, he said, my name is Dr. Demir. I'm gonna be your doctor while you here. I said, yeah, while you being my doctor while I'm here, you need to take this manual, but you need to go get you a copy of it and bring me a copy back. He came back the next day. He handed me the paper through the trap. He said, they about to pull you out. They handcuffed me, pulled me out, took me to the back before the man could sit down. He said, where did you learn this from? He said, where did you learn this from? I said, I told you, the ADX Federal Supermax. He said, this is my intern. He had a young white lady with him. I said, they're killing people with this technology. She said, they're killing people? I said, yes. That was the start of it. I end up being a study case. I went there, I said 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was a study case with no trial. No trial. The doctor said I went through the best of the best. So after he asked me where I learned this at, he said, we're gonna go take you and put you back in the cell. And would you take this test for us? I said, yeah, I'll take the test if you give me a neurovial. Because if something in me, I want it out. They went and put me in the cell, came right back and handed me a test. A 500-page test. Psychological test. The third question on the test, Renita, was, do you hear voices? I said, y'all messed up. I told the test up. Y'all gave y'all stuff away on that one. I ripped it up. And when they came back to get the test, see, because if I take that test, it's going to be part of trying to give me that 100 years. So I didn't take the test and I tore it up. It said, you tore it up? Why did you tear it up? I flushed it down the toilet. Why did you do that, Mr. Sample? I said, because you guys ain't being truthful with me. I told you give me the neuroval, I'll take it.
Give you the what? What are you referring to? The neuroval?
A neuroval.
What's that? Can you tell us what?
CT scans on the brain.
Body MRI, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You need to know about it. She know. She know.
The audience might not know because I wasn't familiar. So, you know what I mean? I wanted everybody to know.
Body scan, because he wanted to see what they put in him.
I fought for it, so they was flying back and forth. Back and forth.
Sorry, not to cut you off. So what they did is he said, give me an evaluation. He wanted imaging because he knew they put something in him, in his body. You understand?
Now we're talking about cybernetics, right? We're talking about cybernetics.
Cybernetics is the foundation, sir, yeah.
Right, to turn him into what the Manchurian candidate, what they wanted him to be. So he figured it out and he said to them, give me a neuroval before I take your test. So what they did is they presented a test to him, 500 pages, but in the test, they wanted him to basically say he's hearing voices to write him off as crazy. That's what's going on. Go ahead.
So my whole thing was this. Like, everybody would come there, and I guess, I don't know, people have their different reasons, was trying to get out of trouble or whatever. But me, and my knowledge of this weapon and what was going on with me. See, that's the first trick with this technology. See, normally when you hear something, you hear a bird twerking, you hear the fan on, you hear radio playing, So this notion about people hearing voices is the biggest game in the world. A person doesn't hear voices. A human being doesn't hear voices. Period. It's not happening. You're hearing what you're hearing. Now it's up to you to find out where it's coming from. So
that's really, I like that.
Yeah, because people get so wrapped up with this. This is why I say this is the bulk of mental health. It gets so bad, they start calling the voices theirs. I'm hearing my voices. So they say they need their medication. I'm hearing my voices. No, that don't belong to you. It don't belong to you. So with me, it was different. I was like, no. I said, I don't hear voices. So, you know what? I got a transcript. And this came up on the back end when they got tired of dealing with me. So my whole thing was I don't hear voices. What I hear is audible. It's an audible, loud enough to be heard. That's what that means. Look it up in the dictionary. Loud enough to be heard. That's what I'm hearing. I don't hear no damn voices. This shit is personal. It's torture. It's all of that. So I took it all in stride. And so the guy said, okay. He said, it's one more person I got to call before I make the decision on you. It's your stepfather. Because let me go back. When this was going on with me in ADX, and I started getting my memory back, So I said, damn, I want to call my people, but I tore up everything I had.
Hey, Rob, we're hearing you typing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I said, I want to call my people, but I tore up everything I had to rebuild my mind back on my own. So they was trying to rebuild it back with the incoming programming. And every time they was trying to rebuild my mind back, I was mastering what they was doing. That's how I got good at this. I kept everything they did to me. They would close my nose receptors. This thing, look, it's cloned on to your nervous system. So it's like a person is cloned on to you, and his job is to crash you, is to walk you to your death 24 hours a day. this is why the world is like it is today. Everybody that goes shoots up a school, he has a handler. Everybody that go robs a bank, he has a handler. Everybody that no, I better not say that. I ain't gonna say that. But just look at, hey, this is what this thing is about, man, handling. So he called my stepfather because once I got the number, and how I got the number was, I said, the chaplain came, I requested to speak to the chaplain. I said, do you think you can get my people's phone number? He went and brought the number back to me. That's why I was able to call him. And when I called him, this is what I said. I said, look, hey, stepfather, I know you're gonna think I done lost my mind in this place, but I gotta ask you something I need to know. I said, have you ever heard of a technology that can hear what you hear, see what you see, smell what you smell, the whole nine? You know what he told me? He told me, yeah. He told me, yeah. He said they put it on a couple of guys out of Chicago and made them tell on each other. So this thing here, it makes you tell on people, it makes people tell on each other, and this is all you're gonna see when they program a group to do a crime. They're gonna program one of the two to tell on each other. It's all a part of the program. It's just how it go. So after that, he came back and he was able to repeat the same thing that the conversation we had, my stepfather, to the psychologist, the doctor. He said, man, you know what, man? He said, I got to find you incompetent to stand trial on the 4 bank robberies. I said, okay. So one of the other doctors told me, you know, at some point, we're gonna send you back to California. And at some point, they're gonna send you back to us. And at some point, we're gonna stick you in the booty with a needle and make you competent. We're gonna restore your mind back to competency. I said, all right. So they say, okay, we want to force medicate you. I said, I'm not taking no drugs, right? So I characterize myself as a federal pretrial detainee. A federal pretrial detainee. I don't have a sentence. I don't have nothing. I'm fighting. I'm not even fighting the bank robberies no more, because once the judge shut down the court proceedings, it became a situation of whether or not I'm mentally competent to stand trial on the 4 bank robberies. That's what they was dealing with me. So it was flipped from a criminal platform to a civil one. And once it became civil, the doctors had to deal with me. They had control over me. They had to say so, or whether or not they felt I was competent to stand trial. It wasn't about looking at no discovery, trying to figure out which way you're gonna fight the case. So I was like that in limbo for like 5 to 6 years, just like that. And I was so naive at the time, I didn't even know that I was a study. So once we went to court, I ended up getting an article out of the U.S. Today's. It was a small article, and the article entailed that it was a doctor named Richard Young, and you guys can Google this. Richard Young, out of the Whitehead Institute in Boston. He was a doctor that created a chip that you couldn't see with the naked eye. But the chip was created to revolutionize the world on a global scale in the medical field, for us to cure cancer. So what this chip do, this tiny chip, it cuts the cell off like a light switch on and off to cure cancer. So I ripped that little article out. Somehow I got it back on the airplane. I got it back, and when I got back, remember that same lawyer that couldn't speak up for me that I met? I called her. And I said, I'm back. I've been found incompetent. I said, but the thing is, I want a trial. I'm gonna flip it back. I want trial, and I want to put this chip on trial. I want to put this technology on trial. I want to put all of this stuff on trial. She said, well, I got to get you on the docket. So when we went to court, she sat next to me, and I handed her that little clip about the doctor, about that chip. See, my whole thing is I wanted to demonstrate that chips exist, whether or not it's for the good purposes or for the wrong purposes, that they exist. To show that this man finding me and rendering me incompetent to stand trial was bogus. Because he rendered me incompetent based on my knowledge of this weapon and this stuff that goes on in the global scientific community that's prevalent in today's scientific community. It's prevalent. You can't be called crazy for it or nothing. But my knowledge, having knowledge of it, he rendered me incompetent because he didn't have knowledge of it. So when I got back, I wanted to use that article to show how stupid he was, that chips do exist, regardless of what kind of chip it is. There's patents on all kinds of chips. So what you re-saying, so I can have a trial. So look, they never gave me a trial. I fought it and fought it. And me and my lawyer got real tight. She was a young white girl. We got it real tight. So when I gave her that article, 3 days later, they called me. They said, hey, you got a legal visit. When I went down for the legal visit and got escorted down there, they said, your visit is in room 10. When I went to room 10, there was a guy there named Thomas Oates. He said, the attorney sent me here. I'm your new investigator. He said, you know what? I read the piece. Your chip does exist. I talked to Richard Young at the Whitehead Institute in Boston, and he explained to me all the commercial uses for his chip. I said, hold it right there. He may explain to you all the commercial use of his chip. I said, but there's some dirty chips out there, man. He said, yeah, and we're going to find them, and I don't put nothing past the government. This dude went on a rampage, just investigating. I had it for like 6 years. He got to know me very well. I said, every time I talk to him on the phone, he got a new chip. The Angel this, the Angel, it was done in the 60s. It was this, we came with so much evidence. He said, wait a minute. I got a friend that worked at 60 Minutes or 2020. Let me try to get in contact with him so he could run this story. I said, yeah, because they ran a story like this on 60 Minutes. I remember a long time ago. When I talked to him again, he said, call me back in 30 minutes. He said, my buddy's playing stupid. At 60 Minutes, 2021 of them. I said, we're going to get to the bottom. He said, man, if they don't kill us first. I said, we're going to be all right. And so they end up, so I met this guy there while I was there at the place. And he kept telling me, an old guy, he was a doctor, a dentist. And he was fighting incompetent sand trial too. He used to walk in the cage next to me outside and go out for rec. He said, sample. He said, keep fighting. He was a tall white guy. He was a doctor. He was older. And we used to pace back and forth. He'd be in one cage, I'd be in one cage. And every time I see him walking, we talk. He said, keep fighting. My case is going to help you. And I'll be damned. His name is Dr. Sale. While I was there, that court's decision came down from the highest court of the land, Supreme Court. It said in Sale versus United States, it said you can no longer force medicate federal pretrial detainees to make them competent. That man kept telling me, my case is gonna help you, Sample. Don't give in. And I'll be damned. We went back to court. This is, I think they took me back down there 2000. I was back down there his case came down about 2002. Oh man, I went back down for the hearing. Oh man, I went back down to the hearing. Hey, we didn't even have to bring up the cell case. That prosecutor kept trying and trying and trying and trying. That judge told him, he said, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? To say that this man has been play acting in my court for 6 years? He got all the reports you can get from psychological reports. He said, what's your take on the matter, prosecutor? He said, well, I would say that the doctors did say that, this type of diagnosis is genuine. And there's no malingering. Malingering means faking. So they says no malingering with me. So the judge say, Mr. Sample, could you please take the lecture with your attorney? Because there's some questions I need to ask you man to man right here. He said, do you hear voices? I said, no, Your Honor. I said, what I hear is audible. He said, audible. I said, yes, Your Honor, loud enough to be heard. He said, He said, let's talk about this. He said, Chip. I said, no, it's a program, Your Honor, it's a program. He said, let's talk about this program, young man. We'll transcript that. This is the transcript right here. It's vicious. This is the transcript. This is the colloquy that went on with me and him. And this is when he finally, he just said, look here. The prosecutor was saying, hey, Your Honor, this man's been busted red-handed. He threw the book at him. He said, what are you talking about? He said, Your Honor, he's going to very well end up like John Hinckley. I said, John Hinckley? And placed in a place for an indefinite period of time and then released back to the community. I said, John Hinckley was the one shot President Reagan. He said, you know what, man? What am I to say? This man has play acted in my court, been play acting in my court, this, that, and the other. He said, look. He asked me, he said, man, where did you learn this at, man? The judge. I said, at the ADX Federal Supermax. He told them, man, that it had the sidebar. My attorney, it's the sidebars in here too. She said, John, you know what? He's been fighting for the neural valve for this. I went and I investigated, and the hospital told me, Memorial White in LA said that it might be about $1,000 or so to do an MRI, and that, he has this thing in his head, so to the point that he want to prove or disprove. Because if it's any, this is going to be his defense in trial, Your Honor. He said, whoa. He said, damn if I do, damn if I don't. He said, and so it's found that there's no chip in his brain, and this, that, and other, and he's going to resort back to his overall belief that it's an overall conspiracy for the government to do this to everybody. He said, damn if I do, damn if I don't. He said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So they came back out to court and whatever. He said, you know what? There's been no assessment on dangerousness of this man. I know everything about this man in the last 6 years he is to know, all his reports. He said, there's been no assessment made on his dangerousness. He said, if this man is found not to be a danger to himself, to the community, other people's property, then release him back to the community. He said, I think I'm going to send him back to Springfield for them to make that determination. And he said, so found to be a danger, then they can seek civil commitment of this man. So when I went back, the federal marshal flew me back. I didn't see the doctor for a minute, so I catch him in the hallway. I said, Lemire, what am I doing here? I said, I can't be committed. Federal versus United States, you can't medicate me. I can't be here walking in an institution, one of these type of institutions, and not be on drugs. You can't put a person in them institutions under civil commitment just to be putting them in there. They have to be committed, or they have to be on some type of drugs. I was refusing it. So I said, y'all wrong, man. So what they did was they hooked up a petition, took me to the local court, even though I was charged out of the court, the Central District Federal Court in California for the 4 bank robberies. They took me to the local court in Missouri, not too far from the place that I was in, sent me before a judge, and he committed me. And look, the only way I could be committed is I have to be demonstrated as being a danger in my current confinement situation. At that time, I had been back and forth to that place under a study case for 6 years and hadn't done nothing. Hadn't put my hand on nobody. Oh, back in 92 in Leavenworth, it was a riot back then. And back in 88, it was a riot in Lime Park. Or they was reaching for this stuff to say that I was a danger. Man, this is like, what, 20 years later, come on, man. Y'all gonna do it like that? That judge committed me under a civil commitment under, he committed me under the, need some glasses. He committed me under civil commitment to Springfield. I grabbed a bucket, I grabbed a cart, and I started painting everything in that place. The doctor said, you re-beautified everything in the institution. It was an old place. I was just painting. They said, man, one day you're going to go to risk assessment. They're going to release you. I went to risk assessment about a year later. And them doctors, I had them hallways shining. I stripped the floors and they walked down the hallway. Them people said, man, we got to get him out of here. They had them doctors shooting at me. Okay, do you still hear voices? I ain't never heard no damn voices, but they said, you got to quit saying that. You got to quit talking about this. They kept telling me, stop talking about it. Don't talk about it when you go to risk assessment. And when I went to risk assessment, I said, no, I don't hear nothing. And what would you go if we release you? And and then I had a case manager lady. She said, oh, he has a good family background and he has support, his family, and this, that, and the other. So I walked around for a week. I didn't know nothing. And I ran into her in the hallway. She said, good evening, Mr. Sample. Oh, your risk assessment, you've been released. I said, what? But let me tell you this. Once they illegally committed me, I went to the law library. I told you all that time I was doing, all I lived in the law library study. So federal law, I kind of know it a little bit. So once they committed me under the bogus civil commitment, I went to the law library and filed a writ of habeas corpus on their ass, a great writ. And one of the first questions I asked them in the writ that they had to answer was whether or not my knowledge of what goes on in the global scientific community makes me incompetent. And if so, did they violate my constitutional rights, committing me? So when you answer the first question, 1 and 2, the next ones, you got to raise your hands up. So when they said I was released, I seen them again. They said, you know what? You've been releasing everything, Sam, but there's one problem. They say you have a writ of habeas corpus pending in our district court. I said, hold on a minute. I went back to the law library. I filed a motion to withdraw the motion and make it a nullity forthwith. They sent me the order, took it out, and gave it to them. I was on an airplane up out of there. So, I was on an airplane up out of there, but I couldn't speak about this stuff. So, I went back, I went to Texas. And I stayed there maybe 3 months, 4 months. And I told my brother, I said, look, I'm going back to LA. I went back to LA. They transferred my conditional stuff because I was still under that civil thing. And so they gave me a parole officer for that. And I was on that for 5 years straight. Seeing a psychologist for 5 years straight. For 5 years. It was every week I had to see that man. And he finally said, you know what? Just see me every 2 weeks. And then it soon became, she said, Sample, man, she said, you a testimony. She said, I said, well, how you know I ain't out robbing banks? She said, I know you're not. She said, I get all the bank robberies, I get everything. She said, you're a success story. She said, you're a liability to us, you're costing us too much money. Then I started working in the oil refineries. She said, you can start going out of town now. And I'm gonna put in your paperwork to get you up off this while you gone. So she went to the federal judge. And he released me off this stuff. Bam, released me. I got the paperwork, I got everything. I got all my transcripts. He released me, and guess what he did? He sealed all the records under federal seal. He sealed all these transcripts, but I got the transcripts. He sealed everything dealing with my case. It's unpublished. You can't find it in a law book like the regular cases. You can't find it nowhere. Unpublished. So they got this thing with Homeland Security. And in the oil refinery, it's certain places that